Next piece. What is loyalty? A very rare trait nowadays sadly within society. And this brings in the same as the last. It's the comparative and competitive mindsets aligned with personal insecurities that renders this admirable trait into the same realms as myth. And this is what we can change, all of us. I know for me personally, this trait has almost become a lost trait, and I have suffered greatly in many ways at people's lack of not so much loyalty, but a basic lack of human consciousness, compassion, and conviction of their own words. And I'm sure all who are listening to this have gone through the same thing. Well, I know you have. Whereby you can go out of your way to support or help people and not asking for anything in return, but a little support back when needed is not much to ask, is it? One would think. But sadly, one would be wrong to think that, it seems. Is that the first opportunity to test people's gratitude for helping people is rendered mute as they jump ship at the first sight of trouble and leave their friends and helpers floundering. In a plethora of contradictory words of speaking of consciousness and pure love with source, whilst throwing people who cared for them under the bus. I'm sorry, but that's not how it's supposed to work. How people can express their eternal gratitude for a person 1 minute or for a few years, and then the next call that same person out as some sort of devil incarnate is both bizarre and erratic in equal measures. You would think that person had murdered someone, or they find out that he or she was a pedophile or some other heinous crime. But that's not the case. Someone feeds the lie, that plays into their own personal insecurities and failures, and off people go in a snap judgments not based in the reality of the current situation, and blindly and happily follow the lie. We cannot carry on doing that to each other. Where 1 minute you can go from being the father I never had to some evil demon type character, all in the space of 1 week. Is that self-mastery? Is that being in control of yourself? Is that being in balance? Clearly not. Now, one person this week said, I don't take criticism too well. Fine. But there's criticism, and there's volumes of criticism on a daily basis. But that same person who made that critique runs at the sight of trouble and leaves others to carry the can. Trouble often caused by his misleading doublespeak and open-ended comments to begin with. You know, many people have disagreed with the content or stance I have in the shows, and most times I've responded in a dignified way. But this is not criticism they're making, but made-up allegations that are essentially unfounded attacks. There is a big difference. And loyalty is lacking. And I'm not talking about blind loyalty here, as that can be even more damaging. As the German youth found out to their cost in World War II, and the Americans to their cost since, via patriotism. It's the same thing. It's a fancy word for fascism. as that then leads to ignoring the issues and not facing up to the reality on key points or topics. But what I'm talking about here is basic common decency and courtesy here. Our planet will never thrive with people acting and being disloyal to one another. It just won't. You cannot build communities and harmony without some degree of loyalty to one another. So people can talk all the flowery new age words of love, consciousness and the all, but clearly they're just talking and not walking the walk. And that level of fakery will be exposed badly now and in the future. The title of our show was specifically picked for that reason. All three words, like loyalty, are in short supply on this planet, and it has to be corrected. And we can go on making excuses that it's someone else's fault and blame this group and that group as the reasons behind it, all of which has failed, as those traits are still in very short supply. But the key reason is that it's in short supply is down to us. Not them, not clowns or governments. Us. We have allowed it. And us to become disloyal, which creates division. And so when something happens that needs addressing by us, no one is around to support us. Unlike the old ode, and I've slightly altered it, first they came for the Rus, and because I wasn't Rus, so I ignored it. And once you've gone through all the other labels and ignored it, what do you have left? Just you. Why? Because you ignored everyone else, and it created a pattern, and people followed the pattern of behaviour. Who lost that pattern and trait? We did. Social media, as you all know, is riddled with this type of snap and twisted judgments, and we in THI know it all too well. And because I am defensive of our group and associates connected to the alt media, this leaves me vulnerable in some ways, as you pay heavily for being loyal and protecting friends and others on this planet. A lot of our issues in our own group in the past 12 months have involved people from outside of our group who have come into our group and caused issues. In fact, the truth be known, a lot of it involved attacks on Randy Morgans, of all people, by a plethora of people, including some in his own group. We've had some of the followers of Shane, Randy's, Tanks, Jespers, Tia Joyce, Danny and Dawn. In fact, 3 of those 4 just named caused issues more against Randy Morgans than THI. But their followers have all come in and caused division within our group. And yet not one of those names went to any lengths to defend THI. Some made out they did publicly and then sold us down a river in a plethora of flip-flopping and misdirect. All reminiscent of American politics and mainstream media rhetoric. But loyalty, when done properly, defines a person of whom what they are. Because exhibiting disloyalty is an abandonment of the self. What goes around comes around in so many ways. Disloyalty is an abandonment of others, and is a service to self protection shield for those not acting with integrity, who disregard people like they're throwing out the trash, yet fail to see the symbolic nature behind it. They are trashing themselves. Truth-telling in this world renders you a target of hate. Honour amongst men is rendered almost obsolete as the comparative mindset and latent insecurities amongst the population renders that mute as well. Integrity also. But integrity requires an element of loyalty to people, a cause or a plight. And sadly for many now, those three show traits are also consigned into myths or remnants of the past. But rest assured, your loyalty, your truth, your honour and your integrity is being assessed now by your highest judge. Will you feed it, or will you feed the replica source AI with flowery new age bullshit words that are not backed by your actions and continue to feed the beast? As always, that is for you to decide, not me. Your choice, your decision, and your path.